What's up, everybody? Hope we're doing well. Got a good show lined up for you today. Oh, I should probably check my volume since I'm kind of doing this by myself. Looks like we're doing all right. Good stuff. All right, so today I've got some critical updates. This is going to be a pretty important show, I think, especially for those who are kind of keeping track, maybe running your own model, looking at things like that. Could be a lot of very important things to look. A lot of things happened this week. Really has. We're going to have plenty to talk about. I'm going to cover quite a bit. I'm going to provide some links. Well, actually, a link. I don't know. Take notes. This might be one of those ones where you want to have a pen and paper. I mean, something, or maybe the internet. I don't know. It'll be an interesting program. I'm also going to address again. Let me just remind everybody, if you want to stay after I do my podcast, we'll talk. I'll answer some questions. I was on, and I'll probably talk a little bit about this during the podcast. But I was on Shammer's show, Gray Man Concepts, and it's interesting because even to this day, some of the listeners of that program were, still kind of confused. There's specifically when I get into talking about like China, right? That's a very confusing situation, I think, for a lot of people to follow. I'm going to try to provide some clarity to that today, and it is frustrating, and I get that. And there's a lot of ways, there's a lot of things you should look at or could look at. And frankly, I mean, the media sucks. The media sucks. You're not getting the news and information that you need. The sad part is, and you think about how I conduct a show, right? I mean, I am pulling information from all over the place, painting a picture that I feel is probably the most accurate based on information from around the globe. And and it's just, I'm sorry, but a 30-second, minute and a half segment on the nightly news isn't enough. It's not enough, especially when what you're being inundated with otherwise. And that's a crappy situation, and it sucks. It sucks. And I don't know what the remedy is short of something like this. And unfortunately, this isn't going to be the most popular platform for a lot of people. It's just not. A lot of people don't have the time or inclination to listen, let alone digest, tear apart, contemplate, and critically reflect. It's just not a reality for most people. But take heart. This is the situation. Not everybody can be in that 20%. Not everybody can. Not everybody wants to. Which creates its own situational issues there as well. So, anyway, yeah, today is critical in regard to the updates. There have been some very big moves happen this week. We're going to talk about that today during the podcast. I'm going to try to make sense of kind of where I see this going, although I'm pretty sure we all kind of have an idea. The timeline, I think, is becoming a little bit more clear, and that's scary in and of itself. But again, it's one of those things. We can deny it and say it can't happen here. It's not going to happen on our watch, or we can face the reality that it's slowly heading this way anyway, and that it's time. So it sucks. Look, I don't like doing this. I don't. I mean, I don't know. There's parts of it I do. I like the community, right? I like the idea that we can get together, we can have a conversation, and that it's not it's not all we're not in it alone. I guess we are in it together, and that's sort of a good thing. So anyway, so I don't know how long this is gonna be. I'm shooting for about an hour and a half. So if there are any questions or comments before we start, I'll be happy to address that. Big shout out to all the new subscribers. I do appreciate that. It's good to have more people joining up, and a lot of that too. Still people from the other platforms, the old platforms that we had, slowly discovering that I had moved over here. We found that out during Shammer's show over on Greyman Concepts that some people were not aware that I had moved onto this channel. So yeah, if you're aware of people who I guess were unaware that I have moved, let them know. sharing some of the content might help. Again, so just kind of a quick reminder, we're going to transition. I will do my podcast. I will end the podcast, so you will see me here on YouTube. You'll see me end it, but I will stay on post-podcast, and we can have our chat based on some of the content that we have discussed during the program. So there is that. Just a quick reminder, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you're interested in knowing when I go live. That's gonna help out tremendously. All right. We got some people in the chat room. Hey Deb, how you doing? Good to see you. And yeah, just a reminder, I try really hard not to. I try really hard not to hit the chat too much while I'm doing the podcast. But before and after, that's clearly when I would like to have those discussions. So, but it's good to see you, Deb. Looks like we got some other watchers while we're here. Good. All right. Well, we do have a lot to cover, so I am probably just going to go ahead and transition into that. Let me get our setup here. Make sure we are good to go. It's such a weird thing for me. It's such a weird thing to set this up and to like run the two different things at the same time. It's sort of been a challenge for me. So Brad's like, are we discussing how gun control will stop drive-by knife attacks on the Capitol grounds? We are going to talk about guns today. We are going to talk a little bit about that. Yeah, so it's not actually a part of the show, but yeah, I mean the Capitol Police. I would say that the situation that happened up in the Capitol, man, the media doesn't know what to do with that. Has no idea what to do with that. So it's interesting, right? They want to talk about it. Of course, they need to talk about it, but they don't really seem to know what to do with it because there are so many things that are kind of an issue here. One, the guns, or the lack thereof, right? We have the knife situation, we have the Islam situation, we have the black situation, right? So I mean, it's a bunch of stuff the media doesn't want to talk about and has tried to very hard to I don't know, kind of do something else. So that's been interesting to watch. But yeah, we are going to talk about guns today. Kind of a mess. It's we are living in very strange times. Very, very strange times. All right. Let's go ahead and get that transition. We'll get the show started, guys. Appreciate you being here. Be right back.
Exercising the first, backing it up with the second. Now, back to the guy facing down tyranny one show at a time. Your host, David Robertson.
All right. Welcome back to another edition of My Disagreeable Thoughts and Philosophies. I'm your host, David Robertson, in for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We'll see where it goes. Of news and information in the context in which you need it. Be sure to grab that link, share it with your friends and family, get involved. Do appreciate you being here. Lot to talk about. A lot of very interesting things going on this week. I'm calling today critical updates for a very few pointed reasons, and yeah, so it's not the best news, but it is important news, and it's literally across the board. It's across the board. There are so many things going on right now at the same time. We are being inundated with nonsense, misdirection, contortion, astroturf, propaganda, and legislation all at the same time. It is, I think about. Here's the thing. I look at this stuff all the time, right? And I am becoming overwhelmed with the amount of crap to sift through. It's alarming, it's scary, it seems very strategic and at the same time brilliant from the enemy's point of view. I don't know. It's a scary thing. But it's also weird too because it's just relentless. I mean, everybody's getting their chance to be the victim, and that's great. Everybody gets a turn, I guess, right? Welcome to America 2020s. Wouldn't it be just cool if we could just stop all the hate, though? Like, all hate? And it's really weird because, you know, in my neighborhood and in my sphere of influence, people that I talk to, organizations that I'm a part of, I don't see this. I don't see all of this stuff. And then it's funny because in the situations where we do see the hatred and the abuse and the weird nonsense and it's not from the groups that the fingers are often being pointed at, and it's just weird. And for some dumb reason, people still buy into it. I mean, wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if we became a nation of tough people? Like where we were resilient people, where we were tough, where we had a warrior mentality, united against the common cause that is literally destroying the very fabric of what people all around the world have envied about our country for so long. Wouldn't that be cool? That would be an amazing day, amazing month, amazing life if we could just do that. It's just a thought, though. It's just a dream. It's a vision. Of course, it's an unpopular thought. It is a disagreeable thought and philosophy because I think way too many have been taught that being the victim is cool. That is how you can be included. If you're a victim like the rest of us, you can be a part of this. It's like, woe is me. Did you get that on camera? Woe is me. Yeah. Or better yet, you know, I tell my coworkers that I'm okay, but deep down, I'm not. And so I'm on social media to tell everybody in my network that I'm not okay because I'm anxious about the things that the media is telling me that I should be worried about without any kind of really substantial anything to back it up. So now my coworkers who are on my social media, they're going to see this and they're going to feel sorry for me. And I'll get the attention that I think I finally deserve, since clearly my productivity at work hasn't provided that for me. So dumb. But this is where we're at. This is where we're at. It is sad. It is very, very, very Sad. And be, I make light of that, but that's, I mean, I've seen that on social media more than a couple times. I have. I mean, I'm sure you have too, but I mean, this is where we're at. And you know what's sad though? Well, whatever. I'll leave that alone. I'll just say that we have a very, very kind of a nasty shift in the American way of life ahead of us, and it's not looking good. It's sad. It's well, especially for those who are aware of another way to do things, or another way, the other ways that it should be done, or whatever. And the sad, the whole thing, it's a full on situation. And it doesn't look as though anybody's gonna stop it. Nobody. And it's funny because, we can see in Congress there's some people who are against it. People who are, a couple of people maybe who are at least presenting themselves as though they want to stop it. But it's not. And the people who are putting on the show, I'm not against, I'm not for this. I'm not going to stand for this. Well, you've been there for a long time, Senator. Where has been this desire to put a stop to this nonsense? I mean, I don't know, since you got elected. It was that rhetoric that got you elected. Where's that drive now? Frankly, as I hear the rhetoric, as I see kind of the trend, I see where things are going, I see how people are reacting, I see the calls of the people, albeit ignorant people. I see it heading in a certain direction, and history has a few things to say about that. Frankly, and I've said this I've said this for years, that the United States in a lot of ways is just a few years behind Venezuela. Now, what is a few years? I'm not talking about 3. Let's not get overly technical here. I'm just saying that when you look at Venezuela, where they were and where they're at, and you could look at the United States, you're going to see some commonalities. And I think that here in the United States, a lot of things are about to become nationalized. And we've already seen the warning signs. And for those who don't know what that means, what happens when something becomes nationalized, it means that the government is literally going to take it over. That it becomes a government thing. Oftentimes it's elements of infrastructure or utility or something like that, but I think a lot of things are about to become nationalized. And for those of you who might celebrate something dumb like that, you need to look at other nations on the planet. Look at other nations on the planet who have done that on the backbone of a scapegoat and see how that turned out. Now, there are some nations on the planet where things are nationalized, but the way that it came about was very different. I'm not talking about those situations. We don't have that situation here, and I think that situation would not work here. But I want to share a couple of things with you. This first story comes from The Hill. The White House is pushing an infrastructure bill. That's important. Infrastructure bill that could reshape the discussion around capitalism, as it seems to reestablish the federal government as a primary driver of how the economy should grow and function. First of all, that sentence right there should scare the hell out of everybody. But it goes on. In addition to traditional infrastructure projects, Biden's $2.25 trillion American Jobs Plan would make government investments in broadband, electric vehicles, climate change, elderly care, child benefits, housing, and developing future technologies. It would redefine classic infrastructure projects to include investments in workers and families paid for by tax hikes on corporations. Now that's a lot to digest. That really is. I almost want to repeat it again and do it really, really slow. But I'm not gonna. But does anybody know what that's called? There's a definition for that. And this is written on national media, guys. This is insanity. All right, check out this definition. A political and economic theory which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the government. Is that not basically what was being said? So let's break this down. Establishing the federal government as the primary driver of how the economy should grow and function, or better said, establishing the government as the primary driver of the means of production, distribution, and exchange. I don't see the difference there. Guys, that is literally the definition of socialism. That's what we're talking about. It's one and the same. It's one and the same. Check this out. Redefine infrastructure projects to include investments in workers and families paid for by tax hikes on corporations. What do you call that? Well, check this out. Redistribution of income and wealth is the transfer of income and wealth from some individuals to others by means of social mechanisms such as taxation, charity, welfare, public service, land reform, monetary policies, confiscation, divorce, or tort law. First of all, I just want to pay homage to the fact that all of these things that are lumped into together are, you just couldn't have, I don't know, it couldn't have been any better. I think that's funny. So basically, this bill that they're pushing is socialism with fancy words, really, disguised to trick the ignorant. And people all around this country are celebrating this. This is unreal. So there you go. And the sick part is after this fourth wave hits us, people are probably going to be begging for it. And that's how it happens every time. Every time. I mean, not necessarily on the backbone of disease, but I'm saying that people beg for it to start because there was a need, because times were tough or whatever it was. So they beg for it to start, but here's the part that they often don't think about because we're all stuck in instant gratification, is that they have to fight or die for it to end. And people that come from socialist nations, communist nations, or whatever, try to tell Americans, don't fall for the trap. Don't fall for the trap. It's gonna suck. You're not gonna like it. It doesn't go as planned. And guess where it's gonna go with this simple majority in this quote unquote democracy that everybody keeps touting. Yeah, guys, it is the simple majority, and they're gonna do it. The Republic be damned. This is where we're at. And they call it an infrastructure bill. How is it an infrastructure bill? Guys, well, I mean, I guess I'll talk about it here in just a little bit. But guys, the infrastructure bill that they keep, it's 5% of the money's going to go to infrastructure. 5%, that's not an infrastructure bill. The whole thing is not about infrastructure. That's how they're going to sell it, though. Oh, well, yeah, we do need. Yeah, and look, let's be frank. And I've said this. I've complained about it for 2 decades. That our infrastructure sucks. You know, it's been rated at a D-, a D+, whatever. It's always been a D, as far as I can remember. Our infrastructure does suck. So a lot of people are going to be looking at this and go, "Yeah, our roads suck. The bridges suck. Our infrastructure sucks. Our water pipes suck." Whatever it is, it sucks, and we need money. Okay, so this is an infrastructure bill. Cool, yeah. No, not cool. Not cool. Not good. And I don't know. It sucks, guys. The bill, it's pushing socialism. Let's be very clear about that. And I mean, you can think of it however you want. I'm not here to tell you how to think. I'm just letting you know what's going on. The media is doing a very good job of selling it. And you know, again, that's why I was sharing with you like The Hill right there. That's how it's being sold. Now, The Hill is definitely a more liberal media outlet, and the reason why I'm sharing that with you is because I want you to understand how your naive liberal friends are going to be receiving this message. They don't understand. Because in that entire article was no warning about a threat of what happens when we shift over into socialism. It's just, oh, this is all great. This is good. This is a positive. So the media is selling it, and that's how a good portion of the people are going to hear it. That's how people who are even conservative are going to sit there and watch the news for their 30 minutes, get their information, and be like, oh, yeah, I guess that's a good thing. And the media is all over it. Look, here's a piece from the LA Times. In his rollout Wednesday of massive spending plans for infrastructure, education, healthcare, and other domestic problems, President Biden is seeking a new, far more active role for the government in shaping the nation's economy. What do you call that? If he succeeds, many economists think Biden could trigger major increases in growth, productivity, and greater U.S. competitiveness in global markets. That in turn could reduce income inequality, lower poverty rates, and reverse decades of stagnation in middle-class incomes. Biden's proposal, which carries a $2 trillion-plus price tag and come on top of an already approved $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package, will face fierce challenges in Congress. But if the president wins even a major portion of what he wants, many analysts say the result could be huge, both short-term and long-term. Oh, well, anybody who would be against this, they're bad people. They are bad people. But it's not just this. I mean, we are in for a ride. Here's a story from the Washington Free Beacon. Progressives push Biden to include $10 trillion climate plan in infrastructure package. Green New Deal-esque proposal calls to reshape our society through public investment. Progressive lawmakers and environmental groups are pushing President Joe Biden to include costly aspects of the radical Green New Deal in his administration's upcoming infrastructure package. Left-wing Senator Ed Markey, Democrat out of Massachusetts, introduced the Thrive Agenda in February and urged the Biden administration to include the proposal in any future economic plan. Like the Green New Deal, the Thrive Agenda contains idealistic climate goals, notably a carbon-free electric grid by 2035. It is also wildly expensive, calling for $10 trillion in public spending to achieve quote-unquote real full employment and reshape our society, quote-unquote, through government jobs, a proposal that would cost 5 times as much as Democrats' COVID relief plan. So we're calling for universal jobs, basically just getting paid to do whatever. But hey, here's the thing. If the government does take over the economy, you're going to need government jobs. A lot of those jobs are actually just going to get converted, though. Oh, well, you work, so you're either fired or you get to join the government's plan. And what's weird about this? When you look at this full meal deal, you look at all of this come together, I don't see a whole lot of people overly alarmed by it. And that's really strange for me. So, you're looking at, well, let me tell you how this is going to go. All right, so they're pulling for $10 trillion on this part of the deal. They're pulling for another $2 to $3 trillion on the other. And this is how this goes. This is what we want. This is what we're going to do. And then there's going to be a quote-unquote compromise that's going to say, well, no, we think 10 trillion's too much. How about 5? Or whatever number they come up with. right? So it's not that conservatives or constitutionalists or Republicans or, any of these different groups, libertarians, it's not that any of them are going to have a win. It's that their future and their children's future is going to be compromised for the illusion of a back and forth. That's all it is. Remember, I've said this repeatedly. In my lifetime, anyway, all we've seen is a continuation of policy from one administration to the next. We see a continuation in the growth of government. And both parties are responsible. And what I mean by that is, while one will gladly take a mile, the other one will compromise only a half a mile. I don't want you to take a whole mile, but I will give you a quarter of a mile or a half. And that's a problem. That's a problem. Spending is going through the roof. Government jobs are going through the roof. The size of government is expanding. And look, I'm telling you that we are being set up for something really nasty. I'll get to that here in a little bit, but let's transition here a little bit. I want to explain some of the numbers here. Story from CNS News. The federal debt has increased by more than $1 trillion in the first 6 months of fiscal 2021. Guys, that's $1 trillion in 6 months. According to the official figures published by the U.S. Treasury, it took 205 years from the founding of the Republic in 1776 for the federal government to accumulate its first $1 trillion in debt. At the close of business on September 30th, 1981, the last day of fiscal 81, the debt stood at $997 billion, according to the monthly statement. By October 31st, 1981, it had risen to $1 trillion. And so now, 205 years, now it took 6 months. Now, some of that has to do with the fact that our money isn't worth a damn. Some of that is definitely there. Okay? But that's insane. And that's the other thing, right? If you look at the presidents, you look at, go back to Clinton, or before, it doesn't matter. Clinton, each president has to spend more and more and more and more and more. Trump, too. Trump spent more than Obama, and Biden is definitely going to be spending more than Trump. And you want to know why this is a problem and why this isn't sustainable? Because if you were to look at the current federal debt at $27 trillion, it's almost 28, it's 27.9. That equals $278,725,000 per income tax payer. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't afford that. And then, of course, there's the argument, well, that's not something you have to pay. That's not, no. Well, then how does that work exactly? Are we just going to continue to pile up IOUs on the central bank? Is that how that's going to go? And you think the central bank's just going to be like, oh, well, okay, don't worry about that. That's not a big deal. Well, let me paint a picture here for you. During the COVID-19 shutdowns that were destroying businesses left and right, and the government came out and said, look, we'll give you a loan. Do you think that loan, for those who, are still walking, is that's now, let me back up here just a little bit. There are some instances that I'm aware of where those quote-unquote loans did turn into grants eventually. But there are still a lot of loans out there. Do you think those just go away? You think those people are off the hook for that? No. The central bank, the Federal Reserve, let's just be very clear about this, is not a part of the federal government. They're in business. And they are providing loans to the United States federal government. And if you don't understand how that works, I can provide some links or, some recommended reading or something. And by the way, I think I said this last time, but I'd like to reiterate, there is a documentary that is now available on YouTube for free. It just came out a couple of months ago. on YouTube. It's been around since 2012. I have been trying desperately to get all kinds of people to see this. It's called Road to Nowhere, How Money Became Worthless. It's a very good documentary to help you understand kind of where things are going. Yes, there is a little bit of bias in that documentary, but if you can see past that to understand the dynamics of how the monetary system works, you're going to be better off for having seen it. But anyway, so we're talking about trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars, crazy amounts of money. Which, of course, by the way, just to be absolutely and abundantly clear, is going to result, these programs, these ideas that they're trying to push, is going to result in less liberty, less freedom across the board. Let's just be very clear about that. But also, less money for you, less ability to pull yourself up by your bootstraps to even buy boots in the first place and to go make something of yourself. If everything becomes nationalized, it's sort of like Cuba. Cuba, you were not allowed to start your own business. You couldn't do it. It wasn't until just recently, actually, that they were able to open up their own business. And of course, those little businesses are thriving. But for whatever reason, here in this country, we want to try what everybody else has tried by crushing small to medium-sized businesses, despite the fact that it's literally the bulk of our economy. We want to try to smother that, kill it, destroy it, because, profit is a bad thing. So we've got to crush it. We've got to crush it with a boot on the neck of our economy. So, Wall Street Journal. Here comes the Biden taxes. The middle class will pay for the largest tax increase since 1968. Wait. That's not what we were told at all. We were told that this was all going to be on corporations, not the middle class. What? Let's dig in deeper here. So much for the illusion of cost-free spending blowouts. The bill for President Biden's agenda is coming due, starting with Wednesday's proposal for the largest corporate tax increase in decades. Can we finally drop the pretense that any of this is moderate or unifying or bipartisan? Mr. Biden's corporate tax increase alone is more than $1.5 trillion over 10 years, with another $1.5 trillion coming soon on individual income and investment. That's about $300 billion a year, or 1.36% of GDP each year, assuming U.S. GDP of $22 trillion. Dan Clifton of Stratagas Research Partners compares that to Bill Clinton's 1993 tax increase of 0.4% of GDP, making the Biden increase the largest since 1968. Once again, the plan is to use budget reconciliation to jam $4 trillion more in spending and $3 trillion in tax increases through Congress on a partisan vote, and to do so with the narrowest majority in decades. Here's the thing, though. These measures, not only the infrastructure, but like the taxation and all of this is meant to occur over about a 10 to 15 year period. Now, there's an inherent problem with that. Specifically, that Biden's probably only going to be in office for another 3.5, if that. And you know what else bothers me about all this? Again, they're selling this as an infrastructure bill, and only 5% is actually going to infrastructure. And even let's pretend for a second that even half of this was going to infrastructure. I don't know what percentage of an infrastructure bill. Now, actually, I do. I know exactly what percentage of an infrastructure bill I would feel better about. 100%. So this is sort of my problem. We get these bills, and they're filled with all of these favors and these other things that have nothing to do with what the bill is being sold on. And then people are like, oh yeah, well, it's an infrastructure bill, so maybe we ought to support it because the bridges suck. Yeah, fine, great, fix the bridge. But what about all of the other nonsense that's all coming along with it? Have you given any thought to that? No, I can't read such a long bill. I don't have the time. I got a football game to watch. Yeah, and that's sort of the problem, right? We all have these excuses as to why we cannot peruse the news or the information or the bill itself, right? And we'll accept third or fourth hand information and not necessarily the bill itself. And that's often why I'll tell you to question with boldness everything, including me. I don't want you to take my word for it. Look, I'm here to give you disagreeable thoughts. I want you to challenge these thoughts in yourself. I want you to go out and I want you to become enlightened and just as angry as I am about it. Because I'm telling you that the ideas that they're coming up with are dangerous. But here's the other thing too. I also want you to think about the cause and effect of all the things that we're talking about. For instance, we've talked about this a couple of times where they're talking about a per mile tax. Right? They want a tax per mile, and this is a way to kind of fund all this stuff and da 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 da. Now, it's an idea. I've heard that it's dead. I've heard that it's just being delayed, that they've put it on the shelf, that it's going to come back. But this isn't the first time that it's been brought up. It's not the first time that it's been proposed, and I sincerely doubt, that it's going to go away. And this is something that you need to be aware of. And I don't care if you're liberal or conservative. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. I don't care if you're libertarian, independent. I don't care. I don't care. This is something you need to be aware of. And I've talked about this on my show before. This is a dangerous, dangerous idea. And I want to reiterate this for the sake of clarity. We already have a per mile tax. There is a good portion of your money that you pay for your gasoline that goes to tax. Now, it depends on the state, but a good portion of every gallon of gas that you buy, and I would challenge you to get online and figure out how much your percentage is in your state and city or whatever, because it's a lot. And then when you think about how these gas prices have just suddenly rose out of nowhere, even though nobody's really got anything to go anywhere and blah, 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 blah. It's about revenue, folks. It's not about everything's bouncing back. It's about your money. Now, when you buy your gas, you're paying these taxes on every single gallon. When you drive your car, that tax is paid with every mile you drive, with every gallon that's consumed. We already have that per mile tax. But I want you to think about it's more than that, because I want you to think about, let's see, how would they do a per mile tax? How would they enforce that? Now, I've heard a lot of different ideas. I've heard that, it'll be on the honor system. Good luck with that. Probably not. I've heard that you might have to go to the DMV, and when you renew your tags, they're going to have to take a picture of your odometer. And that's possible. That's possible. But if they did that, they're not getting what they're wanting. Right? They want to know where you drive. They want to know why you're driving there. I mean, think about what happened during DC. That was the thing. They wanted to track these people down. Now, I've also heard that the per mile tax is a potential for a surveillance tax, which to me, it makes a lot more sense. Surveillance makes the most sense. Because they have these little things, and you've probably seen them with your insurance providers, where if you plug this thing into your car, it will tell the insurance company how fast you drove, how hard you broke, how fast you turn, how many miles you drove in a single drive. And it wouldn't take much to throw a GPS on there. From what I understand, in some of those situations, GPS is attached. So can you imagine what that type of chip, along with the GPS, would do in regard to surveillance? And then what would you be able to do about that, right? I just see this as a really bad situation. You go over the speed limit a little bit. Well, our computer chip says that you were over 10 miles an hour in this situation. We'll send you a ticket. Oh, well, you're not supposed to be driving to the city at this point, so we're going to just go ahead and send you a ticket. Or better yet, with this new digital wallet that they're going to push on people because everybody's going to need to get paid, we're going to just deduct it from your wallet. And then you can suffer for a week and think about what you've done. Don't you ever break our laws again. Oh, but David, no, it couldn't happen. It couldn't happen. Why do you say such things? Okay. Well, if that's your position, look around you and see how many of these other things couldn't have happened. Not on our watch. Again, let me remind you that we live in a country where we've got millions of people who have sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We have people who have pledged allegiance to a flag and to a constitution, the vast majority of which haven't read or could even recite anything in it. We live in a country where we have a Bill of Rights that are guaranteed to us against all governments. And ironically enough, government is the one that is currently infringing upon every single right in the Bill of Rights. And rather than get upset, we figure out a way to compromise, as though any of those had any kind of wiggle room to compromise on. Not on my watch. No way. Yes way. And definitely on your watch. What have you done? But again, we're being sold these crazy ideas. Have you heard that the Biden stock market is outpacing Trump's? Well, there you go. Media has something to do with it. The fact that we're opening up, despite the fact that we're looking at the start of a fourth wave. I mean, okay. Or third wave, I guess, in some cases. And unemployment evidently is getting better this week. And it's true. And yeah, there were a lot of jobs in March. There were. CNS News reported on it. They said that federal, state, and local governments in the United States increased their employment by a combined total of 136,000 people. So government's growing. That's fun. But everything is so great. See, this is why I always tell people to find the contrast. Look at the contrast. Find the contrast. Whatever you're told, even if it's from me, find the contrast and then wait for yourself. Because here's the thing. We're told that things are great. Things are getting better, so on and so forth. But yet, at the same time, we evidently need programs for things like free or lower cost internet. Why? I thought things were great. I thought jobs were better. I thought everything was bouncing back and everything's awesome. But according to a certain cable provider, we want to let you know about a new federal program. It's not their program, it's a federal program called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, which is expected to launch by the end of April. The program is designed to assist Americans by helping pay for their internet service so you can stay connected. If you qualify and apply for this program, you're approved. You could get up to $50 off your current monthly internet service, including any equipment costs. That sounds great, right? Well, maybe. short of the fact that if they're paying for it, they probably have rights to review certain things you may not want them to know about. Oh, I don't have anything to hide. Okay. However, you got to justify it. But who qualifies? Let's talk about that. Who qualifies? Eligible households that currently qualify for the Lifeline program, those who enrolled in other eligible government assistance programs, and those who have had a loss of income due to furlough or unemployment. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, stay connected. I do think it's important. Again, it's also one of those things too where I'm like, maybe we should start looking at some of what Nikola Tesla has to say, or had to say, I guess, about energy and communications and stuff like that. But let's look at the reality of what's going on with the economy. Let's get very real here for a second. And to do this, I just, again, contrast. And I think probably the best contrasting voice for this topic, it's not me. Look, it's not me. I'm just a guy. But this comes from John Williams. And he's a respected economist. And he shows himself to be right a lot. February inflation spiked on top of plunging economic activity, which reflected more than bad weather in Texas, and March is not off to a booming economic start. Headline, March 2021, unemployment and payroll unemployment showed some improvement against the early pandemic impact of 1 year ago, but still give no indication of imminent economic recovery. Now that's weird. How is this true? Because isn't the media and the government, they're telling us that things are okay? What's going on? February 2021, nominal construction spending declined in the month, on top of a respective upside and downside revision to private and public construction. February real new orders of durable goods declined 3.2%. So that's negative 3.2% in the month by 0.6% year to year. That doesn't look better. That looks worse. New home sales plunged 18.2% in the month, while existing home sales dropped 6.6%. But wait a second, this doesn't make any sense because we're being told that all of this stuff is thriving. Well, it's not thriving. Like I said, people are transitioning because some people see the writing on the wall, so they're getting rid of their bigger obligations. Building permits and housing starts both have statistically meaningful monthly crashes in excess of 10%. Industrial production plunge was blamed on severe weather, yet it still declined unexpectedly, net of those effects. Retail sales tumbled more than expected amidst nonsensical reporting volatility and revisions. PPI goods inflation of the last 3 months surged to an all-time high. CPI-U annual inflation hit a 12-month high of 1.7% as gasoline prices regained pre-oil price war levels. Guys, none of that. But everything is awesome, guys. No, it's good. So we've got to raise taxes, and we've got to make sure that you, just stay where you're at and just continue to follow the rules. No. And by the way, we are looking at more lockdowns this year. Just be aware of that. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But again, what are the lockdowns going to do? What are the lockdowns going to do for the economy? How's that one going to go? I don't think it's going to go well because it didn't go well the first time as these various waves continued to pile on. Now, in all fairness, for some people, it's going to equal more payments in the mail. And that bonus or that stimulus, or whatever it is you want to call it, for some is going to turn into basic income. And we know that because we're already seeing it. There's actually, and I've mentioned this before, but there's actually quite a few basic income experiments going on. I think now it's over 50. No, maybe it was over 50 before. I know it was over 40 before, but I think now it's over like 50 or 60 or whatever it is. Different basic income programs in the United States being used right now. And there are some, now this is what's jacked up because Well, I'll give you an example. So there's one in San Francisco that is just twisted, and I want you to really soak this in. Basic income pilot programs are proliferating throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. The goal is to empower poor families with unconditional cash grants. But there's a catch. You aren't eligible if you're white. Last week, Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf announced the launch of the Oakland Resilient Families Partnership, which will provide 600 families with a $500 monthly cash stipend for the 18 months. Quote, the poverty we all witness today is not a personal failure, it is a systems failure. Quote, guaranteed income is one of the most promising tools for systems change, racial equality, and economic mobility we've seen in decades, unquote. And here's the requirement. The program, modeled off of a similar pilot in Stockton, California, will be eligible to families with at least one child under 18 who are making no more than 50% of the area's median income, which is $59,000 for a family of three, and who are Black, Indigenous, and or people of color. That's racist. But nobody cares. Nobody cares that that's racist. Oh, because white people are bad people, and blah, 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 blah. And never mind that white isn't a race. Caucasians aren't white. I mean, some are, but not all, by a long shot. Yeah, but that's different. And that's why they had to do and or people of color. Because if they were to say, if they were to try to delineate, the actual, what is an actual race, they would run into problems there. That's what's so funny to me about that. Because when you start getting into actual race, when you get into actual race conversation, it all becomes contorted because you're no longer talking about color. That's how it works. Funny how that works. But think about this, though. When the reality of all this does set in, people are going to really start to get angry, I would imagine. I mean, maybe not. It's hard to say. But it doesn't matter. I don't think the government's taking any chances. I mean, as you've probably noticed, there is a push to take your guns away. And we've seen it more. You're starting to see it a lot on the news lately. It's a big deal. And here's the thing. They've got the opportunity to do it. And it's not just their fault because, again, it could have been one of those things where the Republicans stopped the opportunity from it ever becoming an opportunity. They could have done something about it a long time ago, but they chose not to. And the funny thing is when you look around, when you see the situation for what it is, here's what we know. And by the way, what I'm about to share with you has implications not only for the United States, but really for the world as we're walking into what I would call, the transition, the war cycle, if you will. Here's the thing, and this is what I think it's so funny. And this is why conservatives buy the firearms that they do, is because conservatives really just want peace, and that peace usually does come from the ability to protect themselves, and that's how that is. But at the same time, we have to appreciate the fact that liberals just want victory. That's where we're at. Conservatives want peace. Liberals want victory, right? And I think that really that puts Democrats and that puts liberals, understanding that there is a difference between the two, at it's a strategic advantage. And I think it's going to take a lot of time for conservatives to figure that out. At least as far as history is concerned. It's going to take a while. They're going to be like, oh man, I wish I would have, or hell, we should have done that. Yeah, well, okay. Whatever. That's the situation. But just remember, right? You train people how to treat you. Conservatives, you're training liberals how to treat you. Liberals, you're training conservatives how to treat you, how to see you. And government is, I think, training people how to respond and how to treat them and so on and so forth. Right? So act accordingly. It's sort of like this critical race theory. Look, if you think that critical race theory is nonsense, but you don't say anything about it and you continue to allow it to occur in your sphere of influence, and then you're training people, including your kids, how to treat you, how to look at that. And I'm sorry, but here's the truth. Sometimes you have to punch a bully in the mouth to get that bully to stop. That's just how it is. But this, of course, is a problem for conservatives who just want peace. It's gonna be okay. There's a plan. It's gonna be all right. No, it's not. And here's the thing. This is the problem with false hope. Look at what happened when everybody was like, no, everything's gonna be all right. March 4th is gonna run around. Everything's gonna be okay. We're good. No, we're not. Stop buying into BS. That's not how it works. There's gonna come a time when you're gonna need skin in the game. And frankly, here's the thing, your rights evidently weren't enough. Your rights were not enough for you to stand up and say, you know what, this is nonsense. This is dumb. Let's stop this. And guess what? This anti-gun thing that's going on, it's not a white thing, but that's how it's going to be sold. It's not a white conservative thing. It's an American thing. It's not a white thing. It's not a black thing. It's not a man thing. It's not a woman thing. In fact, it's funny. Well, I'll go back to the Hill. I'll use liberal media just to demonstrate this point. This is a piece from the Hill. This is what they said. What is particularly notable about gun sales since 2020 is the changing demographics of the buyers. Whereas increases in gun sales in 2016 and 2017 occurred primarily among existing owners, sales to new owners, primarily African Americans and women, accounted for nearly 40% of firearm sales through the first quarter of 2020, up from 24% in previous years. So I want you to look at this in a couple different ways, up from 24%. So 24% in previous years were women and African Americans, and now it's 40%. And what does that tell you, right? What that should tell us all is that when we look around, we can't be looking at things through the eyes of race. And it's funny. It's like, it's funny to me how many liberals don't know just how many black conservatives there are. There are so many. Or non-feminist women, or whatever it is. It's just it's amazing. And I don't know. Well, I've said it before. I think some of the most racist things I've ever heard in my life came from a liberal. I can show you some videos where it's fun because they think they're doing the right thing. Well, voter ID laws are racist. What? Why? Because black people don't know where to get a license. What? Why would you say that? That's insanity. Black people don't know how to get on the internet. Okay, racist ass. Show me any kind of evidence to prove that to be true. It's just, we live in a weird world. And here's the problem, is that most of us, we just turn our cheek because we don't want to get into the confrontation, and we don't want to have that argument because maybe we don't have all the facts or whatever the situation is. all the more evidence, all the proof, all the reason, maybe to be a little bit more versed on some of these things, so you can have these conversations. Because look, the longer we put up with this, the more we give up, the more that's going to be taken. But here's the thing. I like how the author in this piece summed it up. He said, at a time when the federal government has signaled an intention to end the miserable failure of the war on drugs, it may be replacing those same problems such as mass incarcerations, family breakdown, and entrenching poverty on the form of a shiny new war on guns. And for many African Americans seeking to exercise their Second Amendment rights for self-protection, the timing could not possibly be worse. This is liberal media, guys. This is liberal media demonstrating that, wait a second, yeah, we've got a problem. But I think, I don't know, that's a very true statement in my opinion. It was the war on drugs was absolutely just a crazy failure. Now, some of that had to do with the fact that the government had an invested interest in making sure that drugs were on our street, but let's not talk about that part. Let's just look at the fact that it was a failure for now, call it a failure for what it was, and understand that all of those agencies that were there to do something like that going to need something to do when they end that failure. But the problem is, guys, there's a difference between a right and a privilege. Doesn't matter. If you have a Second Amendment right, there should not be an agency to regulate your right. Because if there is, it's then a privilege, and it's a public demonstration of that privilege. And we have, see, that's the thing, right? Most people couldn't define the difference between a right and a privilege if they had to. Guns to their head. Define the difference between a right and a privilege. Gonna get shot in the head because you don't know. And you know what? Here we go. It's just this great example. This, to me, from the Hill, it's like they're saying, you know what? All gun owners need to come together. All those who want to exercise their Second Amendment rights to self-protect and whatever, come together. Don't let it happen to anybody, because if it happens to one, it's going to happen to the other. But that's also going to require some people to work together. That's what always cracks me up about like various different sects of Christianity. Well, I don't like, Protestants and Methodists and Catholics. Well, we're not going to work together because we believe different things. Shut up. Get over yourself. Work together. That's the only way we're ever going to survive this nonsense being thrust upon us. So yeah, Americans, we all of us need to wake the F up. Start working together. And frankly, I am really tired. I am tired of the racist nonsense. I am tired of the sexist nonsense, of the religious fighting BS. I'm just so tired of it. We get it. We get it. No, I understand. You're special. No doubt. That's what cracks me up about people who get all worked up about, everything in their life is defined by what's between their legs. Whatever. Who cares? I don't care. I don't care if you want to be a man, a woman, whatever it is. I don't care. I don't care. It bothers me none, because it's not new. And if you think that it's new and whatever, read a history book. For the love of Pete. Everybody's special. Everybody's awesome. You're whatever. I'm sorry. I'd rather be free. I'd rather you be free and us be free. Everybody's free. You can do whatever. I can do whatever. Everybody's fine. Everybody can do whatever. As long as you don't infringe upon my rights, I won't infringe upon your rights. That doesn't seem to be so damn difficult. But the morons haven't figured it out yet. Look, we are the weakest when we're divided. And you think about, we're all divided, we're all jacked up, and look at what's happening. Look what's happening to the Constitution. is because we're all distracted. We're all at each other's throats. It's all BS. And the government's growing, and the government's going to get its way. It's really simple. It's really quite simple. You're either for the Constitution or you're not. That's the division that should exist in this country. That's the division. Now, you can take your religious views and your political views and all this other stuff. You can have them, but don't shove them down my throat. And I don't need to comply with your way of life just because you don't like my way of life. Period. That was the whole point. That was how this was supposed to go. You can go do what it is you want to do in the comfort of your own home. I can go do what it is I want to do in the comfort of my own home. And then we can get along. We can do commerce together. How great is that? But that's what it's boiling down to. But yeah, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to work together. No, because if I work together with these people, then I'm not special anymore. Okay. That's fine. You picked your side then. Anyway. Let's move on because we got some global stuff to be aware of. Story from the Air Force Times. 10,000 troops will descend on the high north this spring to practice how the U.S. military might react if simmering tensions in the Arctic reach a boiling point, which they probably will if anybody's looking around. The Air Force's team in the Pacific will lead the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps in a biennial 12-day Northern Edge exercise beginning May 3rd. Very interesting situation going on there. And of course, that training is probably prelude because of where things are going. Let's move on to Iran. Wall Street Journal. The United States and Iran will take part in talks next week in Vienna aimed at reviving the 2015 Iran nuclear agreement, the most extensive effort to shore up the accord since President Biden took office in January, diplomats said on Friday, which of course makes a lot of sense because Iran won big the last time they negotiated with the Democrat. So probably going to see a lot of the same there. Seem to be kind of chummy when you really look at it. Story out of Venezuela, some interesting stuff. This is from the New York Times. Bogota, Colombia. Venezuela is waging its most concerted military campaign in years, targeting what it says is a criminal group operating within its borders near Colombia, but also sending an estimated 5,000 of its own civilians fleeing into the neighboring country. The assault, which began with several days of airstrikes that security experts described as Venezuela's largest use of firepower in decades, represents a significant departure from the larger hands-off approach it has long employed towards the illicit organizations that flourish along its borders. Now, I'm sharing this for a couple of different reasons. One, we're seeing practice and play, right? And of course, this is involving Colombia, and we should always keep an eye on the situation between Venezuela and Colombia. I don't know what's going to come of this, but there are some moves that are happening there. And again, I'm always looking at, when we look at some of those on the Big Five, we got to look at practice and play. And to me, I see that as this. Let's move on to North Korea. A story from NBC. Satellite images show renewed activity at a North Korean nuclear facility, suggesting that Kim Jong-un's regime is preparing to start or has already started reprocessing plutonium for nuclear weapons, according to experts. So there's that. How long is it going to be until the United States is forced to do something? Not even just the United States, potentially an ally, specifically something like Japan. How long is Japan going to stand by and allow that to happen? As we recall, I've been reporting on this for some time. North Korea likes to lob missiles in their direction. So that's sort of interesting. Let's move on to Russia. Story from The Drive and a lot of other places, actually. Trains loaded with large amounts of Russian military hardware, including tanks and other heavy armored vehicles, as well as heavy artillery, appear to be streaming towards the country's borders with Ukraine. There are unconfirmed reports that the scale of these movements is so significant that it has, to the dismay of Russian farmers, disrupted shipments of tractors and other agricultural equipment ahead of the spring harvest season. U.S. officials are now worried that a new major round of fighting between Russia and Ukraine may be imminent as a ceasefire is at risk of expiring. This is actually turning into a mess. Here's a decent summary from the BBC. Russia has warned NATO against sending troops to help Ukraine amid reports of a large Russian military buildup on its borders. Sporadic low-level clashes continue in eastern Ukraine between Ukrainian troops and Russian-backed separatists. U.S. forces in Europe are now on high alert, citing escalations of Russian aggression in the area. A NATO official told Reuters news agency that Russia was undermining efforts to reduce tensions in eastern Ukraine, and NATO ambassadors had met on Thursday to discuss the situation. Quote, allies shared their concerns about Russia's recent large-scale military activities in and around Ukraine, the official said. So with all that, I sought out what some of these other Reuters reports, and I found this story out of Moscow. The Kremlin said on Friday that any attempt of NATO troops to Ukraine, any deployment of NATO troops to Ukraine would lead to further tensions near Russia's borders and force Moscow to take extra measures to ensure its own security. So what we're seeing here is a bit of an escalation. Now, this is reminiscent of past escalation, and this is very, very important. So I would say that we know what's up because we've seen the play before. That's probably a better way to say it. But I do think, so this is probably going to trip some of you out who have followed me for some time. Europe is beginning to question whether or not the Baltics are safe. And so here's a simple question posed by the New European. They said, quote, the same factors that led to his incursion into Ukraine are in place again, including domestic protests, a struggling economy, and a desire for glory. So are the likes of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania next on the Russian leaders' list? Question mark. It's a damn good question. And it trips me out because we look at what the model says, right? The Baltics, the Middle East, in through the Horn of Africa, the South China Sea, and the United States. And here we are, front and center, the New Europeans talking about the Baltics. We're not even, like, they're aware of what's going on with Ukraine, but Ukraine is going to be a footnote to the Baltics as a whole. And here we are, we're watching this. And remember, I cannot stress this enough, when you look at the Baltics, you have to understand that there is a piece of Russia that is blocked off, and Russia needs to retain that part, especially walking into global conflict. So that situation is definitely going to be on the radar. But they summed up their article with something that I think we should all ponder. In fact, this kind of reiterates some of what we were talking about earlier. I think every single conservative and constitutionalist should ponder the following point. They said, and then there is Putin's largest built-in advantage over democracies. Above all, they want peace. He needs victory. Does that sound familiar? They go on. Big ideas beckon. Solemn dreams enchant. A place in history awaits. And more than at any time since he's been in the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin may be looking for a triumph. Yeah, I think that's something we all need to ponder, right? Do we want peace? True peace? Well, how does that happen? Do you want security or freedom? I think Benjamin Franklin had a couple things to say about that. Maybe we should revisit it. Let's move on to China. Story from Newsweek. China is readying itself for American and Japanese involvement in any Taiwan Strait conflict, with recent warplane exercises around the island aimed at displaying its ability to isolate Taiwan from potential support, according to analysts in Beijing and Taipei. Yeah, that situation. It's kind of weird because as I'm watching this, all of these areas are beginning to kind of erupt at the same time. And strategically, it makes a lot of sense because you're going to choose, easier targets at first, and that's going to give the bigger powers time to solidify, re-solidify, whatever. Unless, of course, you're going to go after the big powers first, but that seems like it would be an impossibility because you would have almost no coalition at first, no organization, no practice. I mean, it's chaos. It's hard to tell which is going to do what first. But we also, too, as Americans, we can't lie to ourselves. We can't allow ourselves to believe inaccuracies. We have to chase misconceptions. And that's hard to do, and I get that. But I was on Gray Man Concepts. I was on the show on YouTube. Was it last Sunday? And some questions arose regarding China and India being allies. And I said then, and I'll say it again here, they're trading partners. I wouldn't call them allies, not in any way, shape, or form. And this week, a nice article from Foreign Affairs actually supports my statement. So I wanted to share that for those who might have watched that or decide to go back and watch that. I think you should. They said in its bid to gain Asian hegemony, China views India as a major obstacle. This possible cyber attack came at a time of mounting military tensions, with confrontations flaring last year at numerous points along the rugged, disputed border between the two countries. Beijing's ability to pressure its neighbor extends beyond the conventional battlefield and increasingly includes unconventional forms of warfare, or unrestricted war, as the title of the book by two Chinese military officers puts it, to achieve expansionist and coercive objectives. Through unrestricted war, which includes its salami slicing strategy, or how it aggressively seizes parcels of, now this is important, how it aggressively seizes parcels of disputed territory without providing a cause for war. Cyber war, debt trap diplomacy, environmental degradation, and the spread of misinformation, China has redrawn the geopolitical map of the South China Sea without incurring any international costs. Beijing hopes to use the same method to box India in. That's huge. That couldn't have been said any better, guys. Salami slicing strategy, how it aggressively seizes parcels of disputed territory without providing a cause for war. Taking an inch, taking an inch, taking an inch. Where have you seen this strategy before? Now, I know we're talking about the global part here, but where have you seen this strategy before? What have I been complaining about since 2004? Inch, 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 inch. And I just want peace. I'm going to negotiate here just a little bit. Oh, it's not much. Yeah, it's common sense. Okay. Yeah, no, inch, 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 inch. Cyber warfare. Right? Look at algorithms. This whole thing is literally, this is it's frustrating because if you look at look at the love of Chairman Mao for the left. This is there's a very interesting correlation here. Cyber warfare, right? Look at algorithms. Look at social media silencing. Debt trap diplomacy, right? Think about debt slavery here in this country. Right? Fines. Look at the inability to buy certain stocks or cryptocurrencies or whatever. Environmental degradation. Okay, well, however you want to look at that. And then the spread of misinformation, propaganda, astroturfing. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry here in the United States, guys. This is the war plan, and they said it better than I've ever. I could have literally just done a story. I could have done a video on this paragraph alone and called it a day and never done another video in my life, and this would have just summed it up. We're seeing it by the Chinese. We're seeing it by the socialists and the communists here in this country. And we just want peace, so we're allowing it to occur. And because just like there, right, China has redrawn the geopolitical map of the South China Sea without incurring any international cost. Nobody has stopped them because they're like, it's a reef. What are you going to do? Are we really going to wage war on a reef? Oh, well, there's another reef. Well, but it's still a reef. Oh, they're building all of this stuff on the reefs. They're creating these military juggernauts there in the middle of the... Well, but they really haven't done anything. I mean, we can let it go a little bit longer. It's so frustrating. And now they're doing it to box in India. So they're doing it to Taiwan. We're going to go to war over that. You have to understand that. South Korea and Japan are going to be involved in that. Some of our other allies in the area are going to be involved in that. That's not going to be pretty. Of course, they're going to do it to India. But it's not just India. It's not just India that needs to worry. And each week we're given ample evidence to suggest that my model is correct. Here's a warning from The Nation. This is beautiful. In June 1914, the major European powers, Britain, France, Germany, Russia, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, all stumbled into World War I. Following an extremist act of terror, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his wife, Sophie, by Serbian nationalists in Sarajevo, they mobilized their forces and issued ultimatums in the expectation that their rivals would back off. None did. Instead, a continent-wide conflict erupted, with catastrophic consequences. Yeah, they did. It was catastrophic, and nobody could do anything, and they killed millions and stalemated out to the coast. Sadly, we face the same possibility of a very similar situation in the coming years. The three major military powers of the current era, China, the United States, and Russia, are all behaving eerily like their counterparts of that earlier era. All three are deploying forces on the borders of their adversaries or their key allies and those adversaries, and engaging in muscle flexing and show-of-force operations intended to intimidate their opponents, while demonstrating a will to engage in combat if their interests are put at risk. As in the pre-1914 period, such aggressive maneuvers involve a high degree of risk when it comes to causing an accidental or unintended clash that could result in full-scale combat or even, at worst, global warfare. Provocative military maneuvers now occur nearly every day along Russia's border with the NATO powers in Europe and in the waters off China's eastern coastline. Much can be said about the dangers of escalation from such maneuvers in Europe, but let's instead fix our attention on the situation around China, where the risk of an accidental or unintentional clash has been steadily growing. Bear in mind that, in contrast to Europe, where the borders between Russia and the NATO countries are reasonably well marked, and all parties are careful to avoid trespassing, the boundaries between China and U.S. allied territories in Asia are often highly contested. It's a pretty good article. And I'll leave a link in the description for this article. You should read that. It's a very good read. But it's true. Guys, we are so close. We are just a stone's throw away from this entire situation busting open. And as I look and understand, I believe in my model, but you have to understand that for the last however many years, I'm not just looking for things to. I'm not looking for bias or stories, I guess, to reaffirm my bias. I'm actually trying to find ways to disprove that this is going to occur. Because according to my model, none of us want what's about to occur. This is going to be stupid. You don't want it. I don't want it. This is no. Now, here's the thing. Am I willing to sacrifice freedom, constitutionalism for, to avoid this? No. I don't think any of us should. I don't think any red-blooded American should. But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to look for hope. But there's that. It is what it is. All right, so let's move on to health because there's some other critical things that we need to talk about there. First of all, let's talk about something weird to put on our radars because I don't quite know what this is. I'm still looking. Doctors don't know what it is. Scientists don't know what it is. But you should definitely be aware of some of these things that are coming down. Well, first, actually, we do know about this one, so I'll just talk about this one real quick. There's been a weird breakout of Ebola here in the States. For whatever reason, not a lot of people want to talk about it. But I've seen it. I've seen stories about it in Ohio and Oregon and so on and so forth. So, yeah, we got Ebola here in the States, and it's. I don't know if it's contained, what the deal is, but because I keep getting conflicting stories, so that's just something to put on your radar, especially if you're in the northern states. Be aware of that. It's another disease to threaten us, sure, but I don't know. It's something else. Also, something else in the northern states. There's a mysterious brain disease causing patients to hallucinate, and evidently there's like 43 patients in Canada are confirmed to have the condition. It causes terrifying hallucinations, twitching, memory loss, prickly arm sensations, so on and so forth. But the cases are rising dramatically. The 43 patients is dated already. But anyway, something to keep on your radar. And the reason why is because I think about like this Ebola situation of this weird brain disease. Nobody seems to know what's going on. I think about these things jamming together with, I don't know. Just it's a bunch of weird stuff going on. So just keep it on your radar. Let's move on to health science. I thought this was interesting. This comes out from Medical News Today. Researchers have previously identified a link between fiber intake and positive health outcomes. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but I wanted to put this under the health science part for a reason. Fiber promotes a healthy gut microbiome once bacteria metabolize it. All right, a recent study found that a two-week interval, right? If you increase your fiber for 2 weeks, basically is what they're saying here, significantly, you can alter your gut microbiome positively. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this and the reason this is so important is because you got to remember that the vast majority of your immune system resides in your gut, right? 70 to 80% of your entire immune system resides in your gut. So this is, again, another science-backed way for you to benefit your microbiome. And I'll talk about fiber here in just a little bit, but I wanted to put that in you. Now, before I go on, remember, and I've written about this before, there's two types of fiber, essentially. I mean, there's more, but essentially for our purposes here, there are two types. You have gooers and pushers, okay? Gooers would be your soluble, your pushers would be your insoluble, right? Your insoluble, the things that can't be broken down, just end up being kind of bulk, right? Gooers kind of turn into a gel in your intestine, and those feed your bacteria. You need both. Anyway, we'll talk about that. I've written about that. Check out the website, dmrpublications.com, if you're interested in that in depth. But let's move on, because we're looking at some situations with COVID that we need to be aware of. First of all, tell me this doesn't sound familiar. I pulled this from a news outlet. COVID could mutate into a new super variant which could beat vaccines, make people sicker, and reinfect victims in a devastating new outbreak, leading experts have warned. Scientists have said that it is feared that the rapidly changing virus could overwhelm our current arsenal of vaccines. No doubt. Good Lord. It's almost like some of these people listen to the show. But you might recall earlier in the show, I was talking about how we'll likely be seeing more lockdowns this year. Well, here's why. Actually, there's several reasons why, but here's one of them. All right, so let's start with the idea that we're seeing increases in cases, right, with new variants around the world, not just here in the United States, right? So this isn't a politicized thing. This is just, here's where we're at. Now, some of these spikes are dramatic. According to governments, they're doing what they can. Yeah, I don't know. I've got some opinions to go with that. But anyway, here's a story from the Wall Street Journal, story out of Paris, French President Emmanuel Macron announced a national lockdown on Wednesday, closing schools and non-essential businesses amid mounting public frustration over his government's handling of the pandemic. So they're looking at their fourth wave. Of course, I warned you about this a couple of weeks ago. Now, all of a sudden, they're starting to lock some things down. Again, I'm not justifying. I'm not saying that we do need to lock down. I'm letting you know that this is probably going to occur. And if it is going to occur, that could have ramifications for your job. It could have ramifications for your income, so on and so forth. You just need to be aware that it's probably going to happen. Again, it's projection. We're watching the wave occur globally. You should anticipate something here. I don't know to what level yet, but you should be aware of it. It's not just France. We're seeing it in Italy. We're seeing it in Brisbane. We're seeing Germany's. I saw an article last night that Germany was considering it. Again, we're watching the wave. These spikes are beginning to occur again. So that's probably going to hit us. We see the wave coming. It's probably going to hit us. Well, here's a piece from Reuters from yesterday. Several states, including Florida and Michigan, are struggling to contain a resurgence of the virus linked to new highly contagious variants. The seven-day daily average of cases across the United States has been increasing continually since March 19. Reuters analysis shows. Over the past 13 days, the average daily number of new cases of COVID-19 has increased by about 17%. That's, total cases stand at 30,562,884, including 552,000 deaths. Quote, we're already seeing surges in other parts of the country, likely driven by variants, according to Santa Clara Health Officer Sarah Cody said in a statement. Quote, combined with the data we are seeing locally, these are important warning signs that we must continue to minimize the spread. Fine, whatever. Yeah, we should. I've always tried to minimize the spread of a disease. Are you kidding me? Anyway, we're watching this increase. Now, what's interesting about this is because I had to dig for this. Let's be very clear about this. And you've seen this. I've on the news, even conservative radio, for crying out loud, things are getting better. Things are getting better. Guys, do not get lulled into a false sense of security on this. Do not get lulled into a false sense of security on this. The threat is not going to go away. We're seeing it around the world. I guess I don't understand. It's funny because when this whole thing started, I was trying to talk to people and people were like, no, this is fake. And then they were like, okay, all right, so it's real, but it's going to go away after the election. Well, now all of a sudden it's like, well, it's not going away. Well, no, the media says that it's okay. And And I'm like, okay, fine. All right. Well, yeah, but I got the vaccine and I'm going to be safe. And no, guys, for crying out loud, for the love of Pete, if I could, oh man, that's probably the most frustrating thing ever, period, end. You hear something once and then that's it. Stop that. The narrative that you came upon at the very beginning of anything might have actually changed at some point in time. New information is acquired. New things have changed. The tide might have rolled the other way. Things change. Keep up. Stop believing the narrative that happened a long time ago. That's the point. And politics. The politics change all the time. It doesn't change the reality of the situation. And like I said, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'll say it now. Vaccines aren't going to be the saving grace. The vaccines that you have right now, the vaccines that are lulling people into a false sense of security, I've already shared the information. Just because you get the vaccine does not mean that you cannot get it. For crying out loud, even Fauci was talking about that. I think, was it Fauci? I think it was. But either way, you can go find the information. Just because you get it does not mean you're susceptible, which is why they're telling you to continue to wear the mask or whatever. Not that that's going to help a whole lot, but the point is you want to protect yourself even if you do get the vaccine, because the variants and the variants and the mutations are outsmarting even your immune system and the antibodies created by the frickin' vaccines. Why is this so hard? Story from The Guardian. The planet could be a year or less The planet could be a year or less before first-generation COVID vaccines are ineffective and modified formulations are needed, according to a survey of epidemiologists, virologists, and infectious disease specialists. There you go. That's this week. There's brand new information solidifying what I've been telling you for months. Scientists have long stressed that a global vaccination effort is needed to satisfactorily neutralize the threat of COVID-19. This is due to the threat of variations of the virus, some more transmissible, deadly, and less susceptible to vaccines. Variants that are less susceptible to vaccines, for love of Pete, that are emerging and percolating. The grim forecast of a year or less from 2/3 of respondents, according to the People's Vaccine Alliance, a coalition of organizations including Amnesty International, Oxfam, and UNAIDS, who carried out the survey of scientists from 28 countries. Nearly 1/3 of the respondents indicated that the time frame was likely 9 months or less. But I got the vaccine. I'm safe. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that. Oh, I get my second one, then I'm going to be good. I got my second shot, now I'm safe. No, you're not. But hey, go ahead and fall into that false sense of security. Let your guard down. Good luck. Good luck. Well, I'm doing this one thing that the one guy said that I should do, and even though there's no science to back that up, yeah, but he said it, so it must be okay. Well, it's not. And if you don't do the things that you need to do, you're going to get caught off guard, and you're going to be like, I don't understand what happened. You don't? I thought it was a lie. I was told it was a lie a year and a half ago. That's so stupid. Oh my God. Everything that I learned in high school was everything that I ever needed, period, end. That's all I need. I'm never going to learn anything else ever again. That's it. That's all I need. That sums up a good portion. Well, and here's the funny thing is a lot of people there in that boat didn't learn anything the first time they went to high school anyway. But everything that I know is everything that I need to learn. I'm good. Whatever. Man, I'm cynical about that. Sorry. All right, so here's your health tip of the week. Very much related to the health science portion. My health tip is regarding the fiber part, okay? So here's an easy way to increase your fiber. Of course, again, 2 weeks. Increase it significantly over 2 weeks. Let me back this up just a little bit. If you were to, let me give you the warning. If you were to substantially increase your pushing type fiber, you could do some damage. So don't significantly increase your fiber to 35 grams a day of all nothing but pushing fiber. That's a bad idea. Slowly get into it. Let your intestines adjust. Work it over time. But a good way to do that is to increase your oatmeal. You could use psyllium. Psyllium works too. But oatmeal is great. But don't go for the quick oats. Quick oats are way too processed for what you're trying to achieve there. You need to go for things like steel cut oats, preferably, or Scottish oats. Both of those are fine. Scottish oats are just lightly, just barely any type of processing whatsoever. Steel cut oats are basically just almost raw. But with the steel cut, you're going to get the germ, the bran, you're going to get the endosperm. That's phenomenal. Okay, but the Scottish oats, you get pretty much everything. So the Scottish oat is basically your steel cut, but it's just smashed. So that's why I'm going to recommend those two. Those are really good. Throw in some cinnamon, you're good to go. That is a phenomenal way to increase really good types of fiber for your intestinal flora. Again, just a reminder, improve your intestinal flora because that is your immune system, right? 70 to 80% lies in your gut. You've got about 5 or 6 pounds of intestinal flora in your gut alone. Huge, huge, huge. Huge, huge, huge. By the way, I haven't mentioned this in a while. There is a health group. We have one on MeWe. It's got like, I don't know, 10,000 members, something like that, where we talk about health topics. And if you have questions, you can get them answered there. There's a whole bunch of really helpful people. We got doctors, nurses, dietitians, gurus, whatever. We got all kinds of people there. You can come check that out. Again, it's on MeWe. It's called Natural Health. There's a link for that on the website. You can check that out. Which, by the way, again, is dmrpublications.com. Be sure to check that out. I do have an article coming out on Monday, but it's sort of a niche article, so I'm not really going to talk about it too much here. You can check it out. It's about what is it about? It's about it's a leadership article about an education article about university leadership. So there's that. But this is probably a good place to wrap up the podcast. We're at an hour and a half, so we're pretty good there. So yeah, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this update. That does it for me. We'll see you back next week. Until then, take care. All right, guys. All right. Let's check out who's all here. All right. So, shout out to Deb the RN. Hello, Brad Casey, Jocelyn, Winging It Tracy, NC, HRM. I'm on it. Mindy, Patriot Angel. Yeah, what's up, guys? Good to see you. I appreciate you being here. Let's see. I'll go through comments here real quick. Socialism on its way to communism. Normalization of the words. They're just to prime us. Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think you're right. You can vote your way into socialism, communism, but you have to shoot your way out of it. Yeah, very well said. How many years did the current president say it's going to take to pay off the current infrastructure bill? So it's about 15 years is what we were told, which again, he's not going to be there. And it's going to be more than that. Just let's be clear about that. That's best case scenario. And that's if GDP works. So by the way, right there, if we have another lockdown, that whole plan is shot. And we probably will have another lockdown. It's probably going to be another stimulus round bill and even more pork soon, very soon. Yes, that's exact. Yeah. NC said that's exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot more. However, after this next wave, once these, well, man, what could potentially unfold is almost unfathomable about what will need to be done. Yeah, let's see here. Why not go full commie and charge everyone with a combustion-powered vehicle, 12 grand per vehicle tag? It's funny you say that. It's probably not going to be too far off from that. The push is going to be to get computerized and electric type vehicles. That's the push. That's where they're wanting to go. Race history and insert a new narrative scenario. Absolutely. All right, getting health stuff. Take your vitamin D3, C, zinc, and good food. I'm not taking the shot. No reason to. Another thing I would add on to that is the kelp. If you don't know what your primary source of iodine is, you should figure that out and make sure that you're getting it. Kelp pills are really easy. I know some people are averse to seafood, so figure out, and I mean you need a good source. It's not only great for your thyroid, but it's also vital for your pineal gland, just your body overall, especially if you consume city water. And notice how I'm blanketing that via either, because they have either chlorine or fluoride in it, or if you drink Mountain Dew. If you drink Mountain Dew or drink city water, blanketed statement there, you should probably ensure that you are getting plenty of iodine. America's in the state of decay for decades. A second shakedown is its population. Yeah, we have been well, and a lot of that's driven by ignorance, unfortunately. Gray Man looking in the shadows. Yeah, Gray Man Concepts in there. What's up? Yeah. Like I said, I brought him up a couple times today. There is a link for his stuff in the description of this video, and you should check that out. So yeah, that is that. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's see here. What I need to do. Docs. Where is it? There was something I don't know where it's at. Yeah, I'll have to figure it out later. Whatever. I am the shadow. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, today, man, that was some critical updates. Today was big. This has been a huge week for the news and information. The stuff is how it's unfolding is just it's crazy. It's crazy to watch. It's crazy to be a part of. It's kind of ironic, really. I'm glad that we live in a time where there is so much video. So much video. There's blogging content, the internet, whatever. Because I think that this cycle needs to be written about, documented from more than just a media standpoint. This is a very, very strange time. And what happens, what like even videos like this, conversations like this, it's going to give historians some context, some needed context. Because I don't know how this one's going to fare out. I really don't. All right, so I want to open it up. Any questions or comments or things of that nature? Be happy to answer those. And if not, that's fine too. I definitely want to thank everybody for being here today, for being a part of the program, for checking out the website. And for those of you who listen to this via the podcast, I should have the podcast up. I'm going to try to get it up within the next hour. I've got a busy afternoon, but I'll try to get that up. And all right, I don't see too many questions, so I guess I won't waste too much of your time. But again, I do want to thank you guys. And it's even and let me also thank too. I know there's a lot of people that watch afterwards. So thank you as well. Luke says he's available tomorrow. We're kicking off the Three Wise Men. Man, that's a good question. I mean, I guess we can. I've got 1, 2, 3. I'm going to have 4 whole days to finish writing this thing that I'm writing that I have to have in. Tomorrow's going to be one of those days, so I might be running a little bit behind, but we can. Absolutely. We can talk about that. I'll be available a little bit later on tonight. We can talk about that if you'd like. I'll reach out to you. And for those of you, not to keep it like this inside thing. So on Sunday nights, you guys check out yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, we could do something like that, I'm sure. Be sure to check out Gray Man Concepts. If you look in the chat, there is you'll see Gray Man Concepts commenting. Click on that. Be sure to subscribe to that channel. On Sunday nights, he's got a show that he's doing, and then we're also going to do a combined show where it'll be Luke, Shammer, and myself, and we'll talk about all kinds of stuff. So be sure to click on that link, check out, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you're aware of that. He's got a little bit better advantage, so he can tell you, he can pre-schedule his stuff, so you'll see when it happens. I can only do mine like really when the time frees up and when I can slide it in, so you can check that out. All right, so guys, I'll go ahead and, like I said, I got a busy afternoon. I'm sure you guys have things to do as well, so I'll give you back your time. I want to thank you again so much for everything that you're doing, for being a part of this, and for sharing the information and getting the word out. It does mean a lot. I thank you. And, as information comes in, I'll share it. Here's the other thing, too, and I've said this before, too. Sometimes the information is going to come in rather quickly, and I would imagine that... is the national debt really a debt? If it is mathematically impossible to be repaid. Yes, it is a debt. It is an actual debt. And yes, it is impossible to be repaid. That's why inflation and deflation, or, I should say devaluation of the currency is so important. Because so here's the thing. The debt is by a number. The value of that dollar is not. So if we were to hyperinflate, for instance, they could easily pay off their debt. Hyperinflation is great for people with debts. It is absolutely phenomenal, because if you have anything of value that you can trade for that higher amount of currency, you can pay off your debt for pennies on the dollar. That's why that continues to go the way that it does. Where the plebs, like you and I, we have to work for, the full value of the minimal bar. It's probably the easiest way to say that. It's insanity. But it's great for those with a lot of debt, and that's phenomenal for them. That's why they're doing it. And it sucks. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's the crappy end of the deal. Because think about it. Let's say you had $1 million in debt, right? If you had $1 million in debt right now, it'd be hard for you to pay that off. But if we hyperinflated, and now all of a sudden you had a couple of pieces of gold in your safe, and now all of a sudden those are worth $1 million, you could take those few pieces of gold that you bought for a couple grand, and now you've just paid off $1 million debt because your debt didn't inflate along with it. Your debt remained that debt, right? You're still going to have interest, but it was locked in under contract. That's why that's so good. Now, it's terrible for people without debt, but, that's a different conversation. And actually, you could watch. You're going to get some clues to that on Road to Nowhere. Matter of fact, I'll just put this into the chat. Give me just a second. I think it's called that, Road to Nowhere. How money became worthless. I don't know. End of the road, that's what it is. Gosh dang it, I don't know. Why do I... Road to Nowhere. I don't know why I continue to want to call it that. So I'm going to put this into the chat. There you go. So it's in the chat. This is a great documentary. There's another one that you could follow up with that, and I think I've talked about this before too. The Destruction of the American Dream animated, I think is what it's called. You can check that out as well. But those two give you kind of a really decent idea. Like I said, there's a little bit of bias, and nothing. I think anything human made isn't going to be perfect, but those are really good to kind of wrap your head around how this is going and where it's heading. Great question, by the way. All right. All right, guys. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I thoroughly appreciate it. I'll have the podcast up shortly. And, yeah, I guess I'll be back next week. And for those of you who join us over on Gray Man, tomorrow, okay. Let's see. What do you think would be better? Accumulate gold or go deep into debt expecting hyperinflation? Man, good question. Well, I don't think, I mean, gold, silver, things like that, physical asset, I think is always good to have at least some of. I definitely wouldn't go break the bank to do it. Because here's the thing. When you're talking about actual value, you're talking about value doesn't change, right? So you may have heard me say, in 1913 you could buy a suit and a gun for an ounce of gold. Today you can buy a suit and a gun for an ounce of gold. The value and its buying power, it's not like you're investing to make money. When you invest into silver and gold, what you're doing is you're hedging your buying power, right? Because in 1913 you could buy an ounce of gold for $30, right? What is it today? Let me take a look. Spot gold price. So it looks like today it's about $1,700, right? So what you could buy for $30 in 1913, you can buy for $1,700 today. It's actually a little bit more contorted than that because gold prices and silver prices, I think, are artificially manipulated. So it is a little bit worse than that. But I wouldn't say it's one or the other. Yes, you can go. Look, our entire generation is going to be defined by that debt. And that's unfortunate. Think about it. Our great-grandparents, there wasn't a whole lot of debt there. And as you go down through the generations, debt, now it's just a part of our life, right? Credit cards, mortgages, auto loans, student loans. Debt is a huge part of what we're doing. And that didn't used to be the case. Now, a lot of that is being preyed upon by your own government, and that sucks. Manipulation from the central bank, monetary policy, spending, redistribution of wealth, etc., etc. Your buying power can be hedged with physical asset, but a new thing has arisen: the idea of, like cryptocurrencies, deflationary currencies. I've talked about this before. You can actually make some pretty good money doing that, because deflationary is the opposite of inflationary. So as inflationary assets and ideas and currencies continue to lose their value, deflationary is going to increase their value. And you can accumulate more of that, and you're just going to make a lot more money. And this has been shown time and time again, and that's why I think certain central banks and policymakers are very much against it. Sucks, but it is what it is. Excuse me. And again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not licensed to be that person for you. I'm just an enthusiast. I'm somebody who dabbles, if you will. But there are definitely some things that we can do. And I will tell you that for me, let's look at it this way. You look at places in like Florida, you look at different like credit cards, stuff like that. They're starting to turn to digital currencies as well. They're starting to turn to cryptocurrencies. Corporations are buying cryptocurrencies, and they're doing very well because of it. And there's a reason for that. And it doesn't mean that people like us, the average Joe, can't be involved in that. You absolutely can. But you definitely need to do your research. You need to look at it. For me, I don't do any kind of investment dollar-based. I just don't. What I will do, though, is I will buy things with dollars that will ultimately either create or insure a physical asset, right? So you can take your dollar and buy silver. You can take your dollar and buy gold. You can take your dollar and buy crypto. You can take your dollar and buy, property in a state that doesn't have property tax. Yeah. There's a reason why I say it like that. But you could buy foreign property. You can buy, there's a lot of things you could do. But I would be very, very careful about the rigged game and dollar-based anything. That's my advice. Take that for what it's worth. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. You need to definitely speak with a financial advisor who is licensed, and don't take your advice about your money and your own position from a bald guy on the internet. Cryptocurrencies are banned in some countries. Yes, they are. Absolutely, they are. Now, there's also, and here's something else. There's a lot of different ways you can go about getting involved in that as well. You don't necessarily have to have your stuff online, and that's just something to think about. You can have cryptocurrency that's offline. So there's that. So just because you might be in one of those countries that has some things that are banned doesn't necessarily mean that you do not have access to those things. Just to be clear. Now, I'm not telling you to skirt law or anything like that. Bald guys give the best advice. Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Here's the thing. I have to say things like, I'm not your financial advisor. Don't take advice from me, because somebody could definitely take what I say and go screw it up for themselves, and then try to say, well, I listened to you, and you were the one giving advice on that platform, and blah, 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 because we live in a world today where people don't take personal responsibility for themselves. So I have to say stuff like that. It's sort of like why on my health articles or my money articles or whatever, I have to put all these dumb disclaimers because people don't know how to, navigate their own life. I don't know if I haven't. I don't know. I guess I've never really thought about. Let me take a look. That's a funny question. I like it. So let's see. You think it was painted from his studio boat's window? Yeah, I could buy that. I could buy that. Yeah, why not? I don't know. I'm sure there's probably an answer somewhere. Maybe, maybe not. I like the question. Putting it up. I don't know. I'm not. I like Monet's work, but I can't tell you I'm a student of it. So I don't know a whole lot about it. But it's a good looking picture. But I like the opinion. I like the position. Well, let's see. All right, guys. Well, I'll go ahead and let you go. Again, be sure to check out Gray Man Concepts tomorrow. Or really anytime. You can check out the channel now. Check out some of the videos. He's got podcasts and stuff like that as well. And then that'll give you some context into not only the show when we do it together, but the other things as well. It'll give you something else to listen to if you're into cool stuff. Not that you have to be. Not everybody can be. Look, it's like I tell my students, only 20%. It's the 80-20-20 rule, right? Not everybody can be cool. All right, guys. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we'll see you back here next